Welcome back, hope you're doing well. Andy here from Drive Steady, and in this video I'm reviewing the BMW M8 Competition Convertible. So listen up, the 8 Series is the highest model in BMW's lineup. And when you pair that with one of the most prestigious letters in the car business, you get the M8, the most expensive car in BMW's M lineup. So let's see if this thing is worth its price tag in this review of the BMW M8 Competition. Alright, so let's start the review off, and a big thank you to Keys Mercedes for allowing me to review this M8 Competition. So if you're interested in any type of Mercedes, whether it be new or certified pre-owned, they've got a pretty nice inventory considering COVID restrictions. In addition to that, some used unique cars like this M8. Alright, so an interesting thing about the M8, there is no 2021 model year for this car. BMW went from 2020 to 2022 because of COVID and because of sales as well. Now that was resulting in two things. Number one, for the 2020 model year, there's a drastic price cut. For the M8 Coupe and Convertible, $16,000 less than the same 2020 model year in 2022. Then you've got the Grand Coupe, $13,000 less than the equivalent 2020 model year. So it's a pretty drastic price cut considering the low volume of sales for the M8. Now, the second item, and maybe even more notable, is the fact that in the 2020 model year, the M8 had a base and a competition package car. Well, in 2022, no more base, just competition pack. So every single M8 is a competition package car, further adding value to kind of stimulate those sales with the price cut and the added value of the competition package, basically for free. Alright, so now let's talk about the looks of the M8. And this is one of my favorite BMW cars on sale now with respect to the design. As a matter of fact, I even like it as one of the best looking M cars on sale right now, shortly behind the M3 sedan. I just think there's something really cool about that car, even with the kidney grills. Now, the M8 or the 8 Series in general, it's a very low, wide car. That's the first thing that strikes you when you see it, is the width. It is a very wide car, and it's really aggressive up front, and it's got a modern looking rear end. For me, the M8 is a really, really good looking car, especially in this convertible drop top format. So speaking of that convertible top, let me show you how this thing operates. You have a button here on the interior right underneath the iDrive controller. Hold it down and the roof will start retracting. It takes 15 seconds to lower this thing, and you can do it up to 30 miles an hour, which is ultra convenient considering some modern cars you got to pull over and all this stuff. Not in this M8, super convenient for you to lower and close the roof. Now, another convenient feature which I love, I saw this in the Z4 M40i as well, and you have the ability to lower and close the roof using your key. So it's the comfort access feature. You just have to be standing pretty close to the car. You hold the unlock button and that will lower the roof. If you hold the lock button, it closes the roof. So it's a super convenient feature if you're walking away or you're coming up to your M8 and you just want to lower it and go. Alright, so now let's talk about the engine. So this is a 4.4 liter twin turbocharged V8 making 617 horsepower and 553 pounds-feet of torque. It's got a 7,200 RPM redline, and it's made it to an 8-speed automatic transmission, putting power down to all 4 wheels. Now, the twin turbo setup here is a Hot V style like you see in Mercedes cars, where the turbos are mounted in between the heads, and this improves turbo performance and overall turbo lag. Now, what does this all contribute to? 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. Now, this is extremely impressive on its own, but even more impressive considering that this car weighs 4,600 pounds in this convertible trim level. Now, of course, a lot of that is contributed to by the all-wheel drive system that's new in all M cars now. Now, the M all-wheel drive system is actually pretty trick, and it's got some things up its sleeve, like allowing you to drive in 4-wheel drive and also disable the DSC and drive in rear-wheel drive. So for those of you who are M enthusiasts out there who were kind of disappointed by the fact that BMW decided to go all-wheel drive when they had never done it before, you still have the ability to turn off the traction control and get your M8 in 4-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive as well. Now, because this is a competition package car, you do get an M Sport exhaust. So let's go around to the back and take a listen to what this thing sounds like. So what did you think of the M8's exhaust? Drop me a comment down below. But overall, I think it sounds pretty good, especially when you put it in Sport Plus mode and you enable the exhaust. It kind of takes it to another level. Now, as far as the rear end goes, as I said at the outset of the video, I really like the way the M8 looks. From the rear end, it's very modern, very clean, nice looking. You've got the traditional quad tailpipe M exhaust. Now, I want to talk about the trunk for those of you who want to use this car on a day-to-day basis, because there's some important things here. The way you open it, there's a button on the key, button on the interior, and then there's also comfort access here. Now, once you open this thing, you'll notice that the trunk opening is wide, but not very tall, just something to keep in mind. But once you get your stuff in there, it's a pretty deep trunk, and you can fit a pretty sizable amount of stuff in here, for the lack of a better term. Now, one other thing to keep in mind is related to the convertible top. There's a flap here that has to be deployed if you want your convertible top to be down. And what this does is it kind of makes it a little more difficult to get things inside the trunk. So let's go around to the side. Let's talk about the suspension, the wheels, tires, and brakes. All right, so now the suspension, you've got adaptive M shocks that allow you to configure the feel of the suspension. And then you've got the all-wheel drive system, obviously. And then finally, you've got an active M differential that distributes power equally to the wheels, or at least tries to. Now, as far as the wheels or the rims go, you have 2 options. They're both no cost, so it's up to you which one you'd like to choose. The other one looks like this, but the one equipped on this car are gloss black. They're 20 inches up front by 9.5, 28 by 10.5 in the rear, and wrapping the wheels are a Michelin tire, 275 up front, 285 in the rear. Now, inside the wheel barrel, you have substantial brakes, a 15.5-inch brake rotor being bitten onto by a 6-piston brake caliper painted in blue. You have the option of painting these in red as well. And in the back, again, BMW is not shortcutting the back brakes. 14.9 inches, 4-piston brake caliper, again painted in blue. Now, if you wanted to, you can upgrade these to carbon ceramics. It's going to cost you $8 grand. I personally wouldn't. The steel brakes in the M car are really good. Now, an interesting thing about these brakes is they're brake-by-wire, so you have the ability to tune them. I'll display the feel or what these equate to during the driving portion of the review. But now let's jump onto the inside and I'll show you what the interior is like. All right, so now the interior of the M8, and I'm just going to jump right into it, give you some details, and then kind of wrap it up with a quick overview. Now, as far as an option that's available in 2022 but was not in 2020 is the optional carbon bucket seat. Now, this is a $3,800 option, so it's a little expensive, and definitely sit in it before you spec the option or check the box, because I sat in it in the M4 competition and it's definitely not the most comfortable seat. It looks really cool, but again, not as comfortable as the base seat as I'm sitting in and the base seat that I sat in the M5 and in the M3. Now, the base seat does have adjustable bolstering, adjustable thigh support, so all this stuff heated and cooled. So it is a really comfortable seat to use on a day-to-day basis. The gauge cluster and the heads-up display are very clear, very easy to read. You do have the ability to switch the way the gauge cluster looks using a button called M mode here, right underneath the start-stop button. And this changes it to a more vertical style tachometer, more focused, and I really like the way it looks. Now, beyond that, coming to the center section, again, this is mostly the same as what you get in most other BMWs. The infotainment system, however, the screen itself is one of the smaller ones. There's a newer version that's bigger, 12.3. This is 10.25, so you do get a little smaller screen, but the infotainment software, the iDrive software, is the most recent. I really like the way the iDrive software works. I've been vocal about that in all of my other BMW reviews. It's very simple, very easy to use, but at the same time, there's a lot of configuration and deep menus that you can go into and customize it the way you like. Now, beyond that, you do have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto and a wireless charging port for your cell phone. And then you've got a back seat, which isn't very usable. I tried getting back there. I'm 5'10", 5'11", and I was rather uncomfortable sitting back there. So it's not something you're going to want to put somebody back there and go on a long weekend getaway. So that's pretty much it on the interior. Now let's go for a drive and let's see what this M8 feels like behind the wheel. All right, so now the driving portion of the M8 review, and as always, that is what the key looks like. Nothing exciting. The only thing saying that it's an M car are the M colors right here. Otherwise, it's basically the same key as you get in most other BMWs. Now, as far as the interior goes, I've got the top down, so I have no visibility issues. But even when the top is up, I don't feel crunched up in here. This feels like a rather large car. And visibility out the front, I do feel like there's a long hood in front of me. And then I've got very good visibility over my shoulders and out the back. Of course, this has blind spot monitoring. As a matter of fact, BMW stuffs this thing with a whole bunch of standard safety. But beyond that, let's go ahead and turn this thing on and go for a quick drive. Start, stop, button in red, foot on the brake. The exhaust sounds good in this car. It really does. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start it off in Sport Plus mode engine, chassis in sport, steering in sport, and brake in comfort. So let's go for a quick drive. And the weather really isn't cooperating with me. It's very cloudy and it might start raining apparently out of nowhere. But let's see what this M8 is all about. And immediately, once you set off, this feels like a big car. Well, because it is a big car. This is not meant to be a small sports car like the M4. But this is a Grand Touring M car. And it certainly feels that way once you feel the size of it. Now, let's go. Put it in manual mode. I'm in Sport Plus. I've got the exhaust mode enabled. Let's get a quick pull. Oh yes. The exhaust pops are very, very good. Downshift exhaust pop. Very, very fast car. It hides its speed very well though. I do believe that this is a 0 to 60 in 3 to sub 3 second car, but I think it's because of its size and the weight, it hides that speed very well. It doesn't feel like you're going super fast and then you look down and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going pretty fast. So from a speed standpoint, this is a really, really fast car. Now, as far as the brake, now this is the brake-by-wire or the electronic brake, whatever you want to call it, and it's got the brake modes. Now, I saw this in the M4 and the M3 as well, and in comfort and in sport, and I feel the same way here. I just like it in comfort because in sport, it's almost too grabby and it feels almost artificial. So in comfort mode, at the top of the brake, you do get plenty of brake, and you don't really have to smash it to get a good brake, to get good braking power out of it. Beyond that, the transmission is the 8-speed that you find in all M cars. It's a fantastic transmission. It just feels like an automatic. So if you're looking for something unique, like I love my E46 M3 because of the SMG. Now, don't ask, some people hate it, but I like it because it kind of gives me a unique experience. But with this, the 8-speed automatic is just an 8-speed automatic. It feels the same as what you would get in any other car. But not to say that that's a bad transmission. It upshifts and downshifts and does all these wonderful things for you. And even when you're using it in manual mode, the responsiveness is also very, very good. Now I'm going to go ahead and put it back in manual mode because I'm going to get some more road here. And it does sound really, really good. And the brakes are good when you stomp on it. The exhaust note, I noticed this when I drove the M5. It's very bassy, especially when you enable the exhaust mode. It's a lot of bass in this. And with the all-wheel drive, you get no drama. It just grips and it goes. It is hugging the road and not giving you much drama. Now, of course, you can turn the traction control off and go two-wheel drive, and I'm sure it'll let you have a little bit more fun. But overall, beyond this just being an extremely fast car, I think this is also a great daily driver. And the reason for that is it's very comfortable suspension-wise. Even when I go into Sport Plus in the chassis, it's very compliant. It doesn't get very stiff. Now, I found the M5 to be much stiffer than this. It just goes to show you that this is really a Grand Touring M car. But it doesn't forget about its M roots. It does feel like a sports car, but it doesn't feel natural. It's almost like they made it a Grand Tourer and they blended in some of the M-ness. I'll put it to you that way. So because of that, I think this is a great Grand Touring daily driver car, more than like a sports car. I feel like it could be a trophy car. Maybe that's a better way to put it. Oh, I drive the best M car available. But overall, call it what you want. BMW flaking out on the M brand, whatever. They make good cars. This is a nice car. The interior is good, the speed is good, the luxury is good, the refinement is good. I mean, you're really gonna have to nitpick, and I think the only reason why you can nitpick at is it doesn't feel sporty enough. And in my opinion, you should just have your expectation checked, because this is not really a sporty car at 4,600 pounds. It's not really meant to be a sports car. So, like I said, if you've got your expectation checked, this is an amazing car at $140,000. So, I'm going to end the video here. If you've got any other questions, please send me a comment down below or on Instagram. Let me pull over here at Drive Steady. But otherwise, thank you for watching this video. Until next time, drive steady.